Hey, good morning everybody from Key West, Florida. Today, getting ready to take the ferry out to the Dry Tortugas to check it out. We just finished checking in. The Yankee Freedom is the boat right behind us is going to take us out there. Got my wristband and I'm ready to go out and check out Dry Tortugas, Fort Jefferson, and the beaches out there, do some snorkeling. This is going to be an awesome adventure, so bring you along with me and hope you enjoy the video. We'll see you out there, and let's go check out Dry Tortugas. Getting out to the islands of the Dry Tortugas means getting up early, as check-in for the Yankee Freedom is 6 a.m. for campers and 7 a.m. for the day trippers. But don't let that deter you. In this video, I'm going to show you why Dry Tortugas National Park should be on everyone's bucket list. The park and islands, which cover over 47,000 acres, are only accessible by boat or by chartered seaplane. The primary method, though, for most people to arrive at the islands is on the Yankee Freedom, a high-speed catamaran on a thrilling 70-mile trip out into the Gulf of Mexico, due west of Key West, Florida. If you are planning on visiting the Dry Tortugas, you must make reservations well in advance, as the ferry can only accommodate about 250 people per day, at a cost of about $240. This option allows the day visitors about 4 hours on the island, enough time to see the port and get in a little snorkeling before heading back to Key West. The second option for visiting Dry Tortugas is by a chartered seaplane, which takes about 40 minutes, a much quicker but much more costly way to access the park. And you are not allowed to take any camping gear on the seaplanes, so that's why we opted to take the 2.5-hour ferry ride so we could go camping. Because of the remoteness of the park and the cost to get here, Dry Tortugas only averages about 63,000 visitors per year, making it one of the least visited national parks in all of the United States. Some of the activities at the park include snorkeling, picnicking, bird watching, saltwater fishing, kayaking, and overnight camping for the lucky few who get reservations, which fill up fast and need to be made about a year in advance. Included in the cost of the ferry ride is a breakfast, a bag lunch, snorkeling gear, and bathrooms on board the ferry when it is docked on the island. Once you arrive on the island, there is a 45-minute guided tour of Fort Jefferson that starts at 11 a.m. daily. For the day trippers, this leaves you just enough time to get in a little bit of snorkeling before you have to be back on the ferry at 2:45. The boat leaves at 3 p.m. to head back to Key West. All right, guys, welcome to Fort Jefferson. Pick up our camping gear and try and find a site. Here's my Sherpa right here. After visiting numerous national parks throughout the years, this is the first time that I've not brought my hiking boots with me. This time I've traded them in for a pair of water shoes, because I'm on island time. Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of Get Out and Explore with John, and welcome to Fort Jefferson, Dry Tortugas. Just got off the cruise to get out here, 2.5-hour cruise to get out here on the Yankee Freedom. That was a really nice, relaxing cruise. The water was nice and smooth, so no problems there. I'm standing here now in front of Fort Jefferson, and I can't wait to get in and check it out. We're going to go on a tour here in a little bit, learn some history about the fort, and then we got a couple other things planned. We're going to be here for about 36 hours, and we got some stuff on the schedule. We're going to go to a couple different beaches. We're going to go check out a sunset up on top of the fort here. That's going to be awesome. We got a sunrise tomorrow morning. We got, of course, snorkeling. That's a big thing to do here in the Dry Tortugas. And yeah, I'm going to give you a tour of the campground here. And then after all that's done, I'm going to go sit on the beach and relax. This is going to be a nice time out here, and I can't wait to just experience everything, explore, and then go relax. So I can't wait to get started and bring you along with me. So let's go check out Dry Tortugas. The islands of the Dry Tortugas were originally discovered by Spanish explorer Ponce de Leon in 1513. He and his men caught about 160 sea turtles, which provided them with an abundance of food, and subsequently named the islands Las Tortugas. Tortugas means turtle in Spanish. The name Dry Tortugas was added later on maps by the British to warn sailors that there was no fresh water on the islands. As Dry Tortugas has a subtropical climate and is the driest place in all of Florida, with an annual rainfall of only 38 inches per year. Just inside the entrance to the fort is a small visitor center with some really neat displays that contain some really cool artifacts and gives you some information about the history of Fort Jefferson. There is also a small gift shop for you to buy souvenirs and to get your National Park Pass stamped. Here's a nice display for the kids that shows the sea turtles hatching from their nests. The tour of Fort Jefferson begins right outside of the visitor center. This is where the guide will give you a brief history of the fort and then take you on a guided tour around the fort, showing you different points of interest and explaining to you what you are looking at. He will also explain to you the day-to-day operations of the fort for both the garrison who were stationed there and for the prisoners.
So for that, I want to start by talking about the corners of the fort. We just kind of skipped over one of the 6 corners. I will be stopping by one of those corners a little bit later on in the tour, but each of the 6 corners has a big tower. These towers are called bastions, and bastions are all designed house cannons as well. So a significant number of the guns we're looking for are going to go into the 6 corners. What's going to happen is you're going to put the front or the tongue of your cannon carriage into one of those slots. Now these openings above them that look like windows to everybody, those are called embrasures. And that's what you would fire your cannons out of. And if you look at the bottom of any of these embrasures on the first tier, you'll see that each one of them has a hole in the bottom center. And that hole allows you to put a big pin down through your fort wall and then into the tongue or the front of your cannon carriage. Look at this barracks. On board the boat, we have pictures of this building. It actually stood taller than the fort walls. It was 3 stories tall, over 300 feet long, designed to house about 1,000 soldiers. So imagine 1,999 of you and your best friends packed in this big wooden brick building out here in this tropical weather, right? Now this building was never fully completed, so no soldiers actually ended up living in the enlisted soldiers' quarters. Every time it got close to being finished, we'd have a storm or something else come up that would keep them from being able to move in. So most of those soldiers, they actually lived in tents in the beginning inside the parade ground, and then as time went on, they were able to move into the fort walls themselves up on the second tier.
The Dry Tortugas sits only 90 miles north of Cuba, making it a common landing spot for immigrants trying to reach the U.S. Here we are looking at a homemade boat called a chug that was used by Cuban refugees to get to the Dry Tortugas. It has a small car engine and makeshift oars for propulsion. I can't even imagine trying to cross the open ocean in one of these.
Iron, okay? They're great, big, thick, heavy iron shutters. And they were designed by General Joseph Totten. He's actually the designer of this fort. He designed lots of other forts up along the eastern seaboard during that third system of fortification. And these big iron shutters, folks, they were just perfectly balanced, barely hand closed. A good breeze, they blow right open. So you had to have a locking mechanism to keep your shutters closed. Now, even on the embrasures that do not have replica shutters on them, if you look at the bottom of any of the embrasures on the first tier, you're going to find that there's a metal bevel on it. There's a bronze bevel with a couple notches in the top. Those are part of the locking system that kept your shutters closed. Now, at the top of the shutters, you can see there's about a 3-inch gap between the top of the shutter and the top of the embrasure. That gap was there so that the gun crews could peek out over the shutters and look outside and find targets. When they find a target, they're going to go ahead and aim or train their cannon on the target, right? And then if they want to fire at the target, hopefully somebody's going to remember to unlock the top shutters, right? But after they unlock those top shutters, they just pull the lanyard on their cannon and they fire the cannon. Now, as that cannonball goes racing through the bore of the cannon, it it's going to have to first push out all the air in front of the cannonball, right? So that cannonball is going to compress all the air in the bore of the cannon, blow it out of the muzzle just out of the cannonball. It was that air that would blow those shutters open. Cannonball passes between the open shutters, and then these shutters automatically recoil back shut and automatically lock. Yeah, what? Wow. This is a technological breakthrough. Well, this is a big deal, right? Suddenly, if you're a soldier out here, the only time you'll ever be exposed to enemy gunfire or shrapnel is that split second you have a cannonball passing between the shutters. Otherwise, you were totally protected. That was a pretty big deal for those soldiers that were here back then. So, folks, I know this is not the biggest, most impressive looking building out here, but this is actually my favorite building. What you see here, this is the largest hot shot furnace that the United States of America ever built. Now, this hot shot furnace is pretty cool. If you look up through the center of it, you'll see that there's these rails that go up the center, kind of like a skee ball track for your balls to come down before you throw them, right? Well, what this thing did is you would load these rails up with cannonballs. And you can see there's a chimney on top, and you have a big furnace underneath here. And you get that furnace going, and eventually those cannonballs in there, they'll get glowing red hot. When you get these cannonballs going red hot, they would take one of those big cannonballs with a pair of tongs, right? They'd run it over to a specially prepared cannon. These cannons would have half a gunpowder charge, half the gunpowder, double the wadding for the wet or for their dry, their damp wads, and a wet wad in there. Now, the extra wadding helped keep the gun from prematurely firing. The reason they had the half amount of gunpowder in there was so that it wouldn't actually go through the wooden vessel, right? We don't want our cannonball to go all the way through the boat. They want these cannonballs to get stuck inside the boat. And what they would do is they'd actually fire their cannons so the cannonball would skip across the surface of the water and then impact the boat as low as it possibly could to the water line. Now you have a glowing red hot cannonball and stuck in a wooden ship. Hopefully it's going to start a fire and burn the ship all the way down to the water line, right? But what can also happen, if you're really, really lucky, a lot of the warships back then, their magazines, where they kept their gunpowder, was usually stored near the water line as well. And if you were lucky enough to have one of these red hot cannonballs going in your gunpowder room, then it just blows up the whole boat in one shot, just like a crazy Johnny Depp movie, right? So, although not a huge building, still my favorite building in the fort.
Alright guys, there goes our last connections to civilization. We are now stranded on the island, so now we can officially say, let the party begin. The waters around Dry Tortugas are some of the clearest and best water to snorkel in the entire United States. But one suggestion I would have before getting in the water is to check the water conditions to see which way the current is flowing, as when I decided to go snorkeling around the outside of the moat wall, I was swimming against the current the entire time, and when I got to the other end, I was completely exhausted. For those of you who are not planning on snorkeling around the moat wall, I would still recommend checking to see which side of the island is the windy side, because on that side the water clarity will be diminished and you won't be able to see as well. Whenever you're in the water, keep an eye out for the moon jellyfish. There are plenty of them there. I've been told that they will sting, but it doesn't hurt too bad, but I would still try to avoid it if possible. Another thing to remind you of is when you're snorkeling around the outside of the moat wall is not to forget to look up and take a look at the view of the fort from the outside. You get quite the different perspective from the outside of the moat wall. Besides the beautiful fish, you'll see some cool artifacts like this ship's anchor here. A great place to spot a lot of different species of fish are in these holes in the moat wall. This is where a lot of the fish like to hang out. and more jellyfish. Another very interesting thing you'll see while snorkeling is a variety of coral, different sizes, shapes, and colors. The white coral that you see is coral that has been bleached out by the summer sun and heat. One intriguing thing I thought about doing while I was snorkeling around the moat wall was in the areas where it's collapsed. I was going to go into the moat itself, but by park rules you're not allowed to swim into the moat, and for good reason, because when the Fort Jefferson was actually in operation, all of the staff and prisoners did their business in the water there for years, though I'm sure all of it's been washed out the Well, everybody, you saw me snorkeling earlier today, and one of the other really cool things to do here at Fort Jefferson is to walk around the outside of the fort on the moat here that's behind me. So we're going to go take a walk on the moat and check out the views from there. The 70-foot wide moat, also known as the counterscarp, was actually dug out and built by prisoners after the Civil War and was completed in 1872. One of the reasons for the moat was that it protected the fort from the ocean currents. In fact, if it weren't for the moat, the fort would no longer exist. The second reason for the moat is the defense of the fort. If ships were attacking the fort, this would slow them down and allow the garrison more time to shoot at the attackers. And lastly, it was an integral part of the tidal flushing system of the fort for the 1,500 men stationed here, although it really never did work very well as the tides here are not very strong. As you saw in the snorkeling portion of the video, we're going to come to a section that's collapsed. I think that happened during Hurricane Irma in 2017, and so you can't walk all the way around. You have to walk part of the way and then turn around, and if you want to complete the moat walk, you have to go up to the north side, to the north beach, and access the remainder from up there. But this is the bigger portion of the two, so we're going to keep on walking around until we can't go any further. And then you can see Loggerhead Key way out there in the distance with the lighthouse out there about 3 miles out from where we are now. So, but the views here on the moat are pretty awesome. Don't forget to take a peek over the side. You can see some of the wall that's collapsed into the water. Just be careful as you walk along the side. Oh, there's some crabs right down there. Didn't see any of those when I was snorkeling around, but a couple of pretty good sized crabs there. That's pretty cool. I think they're not happy that I spotted them, but there they are nonetheless. Pretty cool. Oh, look at the size of that barracuda in there. Holy smokes, that thing's probably 4 or 5 feet long. Whoa, glad I didn't run into that guy when I was out there snorkeling. That thing is huge. And there's the openings on all of the casemates on the back of the fort here. As you can see, a lot of them are in disrepair. I think they're trying to repair some of them as best they can. Looks like they're right in the middle of that kind of repair job in a lot of places as I looked around the fort. But overall, still in fairly decent shape for being nearly 180 years old. And if you look really closely, right down at the water line there, you can see where the bricks have fallen into the moat from up above. So it's another thing to be careful of as you're walking around the fort, just take a look up every now and then to make sure the bricks that you're walking under are secure, because they do come down from time to time. This little storm that just blew by here a little while ago gave us that awesome rainbow that we just saw, and this is going to be looking west, so hopefully in an hour or so we're going to get a nice sunset. Hopefully if we get up to the top, the plan is to go up to the top of the fort and view the sunset from there, so we're going to keep our fingers crossed that those clouds clear out of here. See, here's some more cracks in the concrete here on the moat, so it is definitely in need of some help here. So just really be careful if you're walking on the moat. We're almost up to the section here that collapsed, I believe, like I said, in 2017. It's much easier walking the moat than it was snorkeling around the outside of the moat. That was about a 35-40 minute snorkel all the way around the fort, and I was pretty exhausted when I got to the end. I was glad I made it, but yep, here's where the moat has collapsed, and would not recommend trying to jump down in there and get to the other side. It's all covered in algae and very slippery. I was kind of feeling around when I was in the water there, and you're definitely going to have a hard time, so don't even try it. Turn around, go back, and get to it from the other side. And since the moat collapsed there, it looks like there's been a little sandbar building up there in the corner with some of the pieces of the fort that have come down. End of the road. Gotta go back and we'll catch the other side from the North Beach. Florida, including the islands of the Dry Tortugas, was acquired by the United States from Spain in 1819. The question is, why would they build a fort out here in the first place? The answer is the Tortugas were seen as a strategic point of control for the Straits of Florida and the Gulf of Mexico. There was also a deep water harbor which ships could anchor to escape storms, which is still done to this day. In 1824, the U.S. Navy decided to build a naval station on Garden Key to help suppress piracy in the Caribbean. Construction of the first lighthouse on Garden Key began in 1825, and planning for the fortification began almost immediately. Well, the more I see of this place, I mean, the more I'm just falling in love with it. This place is absolutely amazing. I was really looking forward to this trip, and it's met all of my expectations. The fort is awesome. The snorkeling is awesome. I mean, if you get a chance to come out here, this is a bucket list trip, and I know it's expensive to get here, but definitely do it, because it is something to see, and you will be amazed, and you'll be so glad that you did this. All right, check out what I just found here, guys. Just came around the corner. I'm still on the moat here on the southwest corner, and here is a benchmark from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers that was placed here in 1978. On top of the fort is the perfect spot for watching the sunset, and a perfect way to end an awesome day in the Dry Tortugas. Fort Jefferson came to be as a result of the War of 1812, when President James Madison ordered a series of forts to be built along the U.S. coastline from Texas to Maine to protect against foreign invasions. I recently visited another one of these forts just outside of Savannah, Georgia, Fort Pulaski. I'll put a link to that video in the description down below if you're interested in learning more about these amazing masonry structures. As part of these defenses, Fort Jefferson, which was named after the third U.S. President Thomas Jefferson, was part of the third-tier system of fortifications of the U.S. and was built to protect the entrance into the Gulf of Mexico. It is located on Garden Key, and construction began in 1846 and continued for the next 30 years, though the fort was never officially finished. Construction of the fort was originally done by slaves until the prisoners started arriving to the fort in 1861. It was then that they took over the construction. It is the third largest brick masonry fort in the Western Hemisphere after Fort Monroe in Virginia and Fort Adams in Rhode Island. It covers 16 acres, with each side being over 450 feet long. It is a six-sided structure and consists of over 2,000 brick arches made from over 16 million handmade bricks,
most of which were brought here on wooden boats from Pensacola, Florida. Though if you look closely, you will notice that the color of the brick changes on the third tier of the fort. The reason for that is, in 1861, Florida seceded from the Union and the supply of bricks stopped arriving from Pensacola. For the construction of the fort to continue, the remaining bricks had to be shipped all the way down from the state of Maine. Each small section of the fort is known as a casemate and was large enough to house a cannon. The fort was designed to hold over 300 cannons, but when it was abandoned in 1874, it only had 141. The six large cannons on the third tier or the top of the fort are 15-inch Rodman cannons and could shoot a 432-pound cannonball over 3 miles in any direction. In fact, it is said that the fort could shoot 125 cannons a minute at a target regardless of the direction, though none of the cannons were ever fired in anger. The ruins of the soldiers' barracks are located in the 13-acre parade field in the middle of the fort, along with the unfinished powder magazine, cannonball heating building, officers' barracks, and the remains of the hospital. At the onset of the Civil War, the Union stationed 62 men at Fort Jefferson to prevent it from falling into the hands of the rebel forces. It remained in Union hands throughout the entire Civil War, even though it was surrounded by the Confederacy. Starting in 1861, during the Civil War, the fort was used as a military prison for Union soldiers, as President Lincoln substituted imprisonment on Dry Tortugas in lieu of execution for those found guilty of desertion. After the Civil War, Fort Jefferson remained active until it was abandoned in 1874. After the war, Fort Jefferson was neglected by the United States government, stripped by vandals, swept by repeated tropical storms that crushed brick and concrete, which caused the deterioration of the fort. It remained unoccupied until the Spanish-American War broke out in 1898. At that point, the American fleet was stationed there. One of the ships to load coal there was the USS Maine before her fateful trip to Savannah. In 1902, Garden Key and the fort were once again transferred, this time to the Navy Department, and it was used as a coal refueling station as well as a wireless radio station. In 1908, it was designated as a National Wildlife Refuge and then served as a marine biology station into the 1930s. In 1935, President Roosevelt designated it as a national monument, and then in 1992, it was upgraded to a national park.
Okay guys, I don't know how this is going to go, but surprise, I'm going to do some nighttime snorkeling. I hear that there's different fish out at night. Hopefully there's no sharks out at night, but we're going to go check it out and see if we can find something other than what we saw earlier today.
snorkeling in the Dry Tortugas. That was pretty freaking awesome. Couldn't see a whole lot beyond the light, but man, what an awesome experience. This whole place has been a great day out here. So hopefully you're liking the video so far. I'll catch you tomorrow with some more exciting stuff. Alright guys, well, after that awesome thunderstorm, the skies cleared up a little bit and we got to do some stargazing, but we just can't sleep, so I think I'm going to go inside the fort and try to see if I can find any ghosts, so let's go check out Fort Jefferson at night. Didn't come across any ghosts, but I will tell you that it's not recommended to explore Fort Jefferson at night. It'd be pretty easy to get turned around in here and get lost. And as you can see right here, you could pretty easily fall off the side of the fort into the moat. I gotta be quiet. It's about 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm checking out the stars here with the zero light pollution. The stars out here are amazing, so definitely plan on doing that if you come out here. But as you can see, the sun's starting to rise here. I'm standing right next to the moat here at Fort Jefferson. Luckily, Bush Key opened up yesterday, so we're going to be able to walk out to the point and catch the sunrise out there. So I'm going to go do that right now and bring you along with me. Normally that's going to be closed until the end of September for the birds, but apparently they left early this year, so they opened it up for us, so we're going to get a chance to go out and check out the sunrise at the point. Well, good morning. As you can see, I've made it out to the point here on Bush Key, and I am the only one here, so I'm going to get to enjoy this beautiful sunrise all to myself here. I'll find a spot over by the sand so we can sit down, just listening to the birds chirping, and yeah, wait for the sun to come up. The islands of the Dry Tortugas sit at the intersection of two migratory bird paths. That is why there are so many different bird species found here. So, bird watching is another very popular activity to do in the islands, as there are over 100,000 sooty terns and about 4,500 brown knotty terns here every year. Looking at this area, one could see what the rest of the Florida Keys would look like if it were an untouched ecosystem like the islands of the Dry Tortugas.
Of course, most visitors who come to the Dry Tortugas would love to see a sea turtle. They are often seen swimming in the warm waters around the islands, so there is a good chance that you will.
May and June are typically when the sea turtles come ashore to lay their eggs. These islands were originally named Las Tortugas by Ponce de Leon in 1513, as Tortuga means turtle in Spanish. The islands are famous for the abundance of turtles that annually nest in the area. On my beach walk back from watching the sunrise, I met some of the park biologists who were studying one of the nests, as they've been monitoring sea turtle activity within the park boundary since 1980. The biologists were excavating the nest to record the number of hatched and unhatched eggs to help determine the success rate of each turtle species. Turtle eggs are about the size of a ping pong ball. They also look for tracks or other signs left on the beach by the sea turtles emerging from the sea. This area is perfect for nesting, as there is little to no man-made light which could confuse the hatchlings when they first emerge from the nest. As man-made light sometimes confuses them, causing them to get lost and head inland, increasing the chances of dying of dehydration, exhaustion, or being eaten by birds or ghost crabs. If conditions are not right for nesting, a female turtle will abandon her nesting attempt. If conditions are right, the female turtle will use her rear flippers to excavate a nest into which she will deposit her clutch of eggs. After depositing her eggs, she uses her front flippers to cover the egg chamber with sand before lumbering back into the water, leaving her eggs to incubate and hatch on their own. There are 5 species of turtles found around the Dry Tortugas, including the loggerhead, the green, the leatherback, the Kemp's Riley, and the hawkbill. All are now on the endangered list, and it is illegal to harm or kill any sea turtle. It is estimated that only 1 in 1,000 sea turtles survive to adulthood. Some of the interesting facts I learned here were that the temperature of the sand determines the speed of the embryo development, as development speed increases with increasing nest temperatures. Also, a cooler nest generally produces more male turtles, and a warmer nest generally produces more female turtles.
Here is a brief summary for those of you who are planning on camping on Dry Tortugas. Once you get off of the ferry, you're going to take a left in front of Fort Jefferson and go towards the trees. That is the campground. Just next to the moat, you will find a kiosk is where you're going to pay your $15 overnight camping fees. Once you have done that, you will make your way over towards the campground. There are 8 primitive campsites on a first-come, first-served basis, and you need to make reservations well in advance. These things do fill up very fast. Some of the sites are more exposed than others. We chose this site here within the trees to give ourselves a little bit of break from the wind and the sun. Keep in mind that this is primitive camping, so all campers need to bring supplies that they might need for the duration of the time they're there, including all food and water. Also note that propane bottles are prohibited on the ferry, so you'll have to come up with an alternative way to cook your food, such as sterno or some type of gel liquid. We opted to use charcoal, and it worked out just fine. Alright guys, I just want to show you my cool campsite I have for the night. So here's Fort Jefferson, and that's the moat. South Beach is down that way, and then right over here is the campsite. Everybody gets a picnic table, little grill, and a post to hang your trash bag. The Park Service gives you the trash bag. You have to use the trash bag if you want them to take your trash back. And then we were back in here last night. So there's a number of different campsites, and some of them were out more exposed in the sun, some of them are more in the trees, but yeah, nice campsites.
We were told by the rangers that they've eradicated the rats that used to inhabit the island here, but now you have to watch out for these hermit crabs, which are everywhere. They will get into your food and your tent and your boots, so just be careful to check all that and make sure you watch where you're walking, because they are everywhere. Imagine waking up in your tent and opening the door to this view right here. Check this out. Absolutely amazing. Fort Jefferson, Dry Tortugas. This is what it's all about. Get out and explore with John. Absolutely amazing. All right, so right next to the campground, this is site number 8 here. And straight ahead on that path takes you down to the other end of the South Beach. They do have composting toilets here for the campers only. They are locked during the day when the boat is here, and then they open them after the boat leaves in the afternoon. 2 for the men, 2 for the women. No running water, just composting toilets and sanitizer, but that's all you need. It says primitive camping. Just past the bathrooms here as the other entrance to South Beach. I see a couple of private boats that were docked out there last night. And just look at how clear blue that water is. That is amazing. I hope that shows up on the camera, because it is absolutely unbelievable. This is like water you would find down in the Caribbean. Just gorgeous. And right around the corner of this concrete here is the remains of the South Coal Dock, and we're going to be snorkeling over there later on. That looks like it's going to be kind of interesting. So here it is, South Beach, and there's the backside of Fort Jefferson. Dear Jackson, have the best 3rd birthday party ever. Pop pop. Come on! Fire! I can't take it anymore, Wilson. I can't take it. We've been on this island so long, I just can't take it. We gotta get out of here. I got an idea. Let's see if we can make some kind of raft, and we'll float out into the channel, and maybe a passing ship will find us. Yeah, I agree. Let's go do it. Yeah. Don't worry, Wilson. I'll do all the paddling.
What a crazy dream. Guess this heat must be getting to me out here. I think I better go get back in the water and cool off some. Amazing views they got out here, and that water is a crazy blue color. It's like the Caribbean. It is. One of the issues that they have had at Fort Jefferson from the very beginning is water seeping through the bricks. It's been doing it for such a long time that it started to create stalactites and stalagmites here inside of the fort.
Now, the little foundations that are in front of it, those are actually in the kitchen. So we have one big kitchen like a small kitchen.
Here's another area of the fort that we have not previously explored. This is the fort's gunpowder supply building. The fort's effectiveness in the 1800s depended in large part on its gunpowder supply. Keeping the powder dry and avoiding explosions were critical. The powder magazine's special features included wooden floors and walls to prevent sparks. Air vents and raised flooring enhanced the air circulation. The impressive arch that you see above was designed to support a thick roof of protective concrete. As I said earlier, the Dry Tortugas only receives about 30 inches of rain per year, so the entire roof of the fort served as a basin to catch as much rainwater as possible. From here, pipes carried the water down to cisterns beneath the first floor. After cracks in the settling fort allowed salt water to enter most of the underground cisterns, the military had to rely on a new 92,000-gallon cistern that was brought in and placed on the parade field. During the Civil War, 2 steam condensers were brought to the fort that could distill 7,000 gallons of fresh water per day from seawater. Now let's go check out the famous prison cell of Dr. Mudd here at Fort Jefferson. Here we are, officially at Dr. Samuel Mudd's cell block here. I'm going to cut away and show you the house that he lived in Waldorf, Maryland, and then we'll come back and I'll show you the rest of the cell here at Dry Tortugas and give you the story of Dr. Mudd. Take a quick break from our regularly scheduled program to bring you a quick view of the Dr. Mudd house here just outside of Waldorf, Maryland. Just took a quick tour of the house here, learned some really cool history about Dr. Mudd. So if you're ever in the area of Waldorf, Maryland, this is worth stopping by and checking out. So show you a couple of pictures of the inside of the house. We weren't able to take any video, but I wanted to show you a couple pictures and then we'll come back to Fort Jefferson. After the Civil War, the prison at Fort Jefferson held 4 of the conspirators who were involved in the assassination of President Lincoln in 1865. Among them was Dr. Samuel Mudd. Before his time at Fort Jefferson, Mudd worked as a doctor and farmer in southern Maryland. The Civil War had seriously damaged his businesses, especially when Maryland abolished slavery in 1864. Dr. Mudd's house is a historic house near modern-day Waldorf, Maryland, and has been in the Mudd family since the 1690s. It is currently operated as a historic house museum. It was in this house that Dr. Mudd treated the injured John Wilkes Booth, who was fleeing the authorities a day after assassinating President Lincoln. Booth and his accomplice David Harold stopped at the Mudd house around 4 a.m. on April 15th, and Dr. Mudd splinted Booth's broken leg, and Booth paid him $25 for his services. They spent a total of 12 hours at the Mudd house. During that time, they slept in the front bedroom of the second floor. It remains unclear if Mudd had yet been informed that Booth had killed Lincoln. What is known is that Mudd did not immediately contact the authorities, and when questioned, he stated that he did not want to leave his family alone in the house in case Booth returned, so he waited until Mass the following day. This delay was a significant factor in tying him to the conspiracy, and during his questioning, the authorities realized that Mudd had misled them, and a subsequent military commission found him guilty of aiding and conspiring in the murder. He was sentenced to life imprisonment, escaping execution by a single vote. In July of 1865, Mudd, along with his co-conspirators, arrived at Fort Jefferson to serve out their sentences. At one point, Mudd attempted to stow away on a steam transport ship, which led to his detention in the fort's dungeon. 2 years into his sentence, a yellow fever epidemic hit the fort and killed many of the soldiers and prisoners, including the fort's doctor. Mudd stepped in providing medical care to the sick and helped save many people at the fort.
For his actions, he was pardoned and released in 1869 by Lincoln's successor, President Andrew Johnson. Okay, well, I think that's going to do it from here in Waldorf, Maryland. I just wanted to give you a few pictures of the Dr. Mudd house here, and maybe a little bit of the history of how he ended up in Fort Jefferson as he was part of the conspiracy to assassinate President Lincoln. So let's go back to Fort Jefferson and continue our trip to Dry Tortugas. Okay, welcome back. So after he was convicted in the conspiracy to assassinate Abraham Lincoln, Dr. Mudd was imprisoned here at Dry Tortugas at Fort Jefferson, and this was his cell here while he was imprisoned from 1865 through 1869. I would say if you were going to be held prisoner, I mean, have a view like this, it was not a bad thing, but you're still a prisoner. You can't escape. He did try to escape a couple times while he was here, but was unsuccessful, and he finally was pardoned by President Jackson in 1869 after he assisted with the yellow fever outbreak here at the fort. These two indents in the floor here are what's left over from when he was a prisoner here. He carved these two divots in the concrete to allow water to drain a little bit quicker and more evenly so that his cell would remain dry, because he was having issues with the water seeping into his cell. But this is where Dr. Mudd was imprisoned for 4 years. Okay guys, well, I see the Yankee Freedoms arrived back here in the Dry Tortugas to pick us up and take us back to Key West. So I think that's going to do it for our adventure here in the Dry Tortugas. But what an incredible 36 hours we had here. We stayed busy, we got to see and explore a lot, and I'm so glad that I got this opportunity. Highly recommend this park. If you get the chance, please come out here and do it. I guarantee you that you'll be glad that you did. I guess that's going to do it for my adventure here at Dry Tortugas. Experience. Loved exploring the island here in the fort. There's really a lot to learn and something really cool to see in person. So come out here and do it. I appreciate you watching the video, and until next time, like I always say, you never know what you're going to see when you get out and explore the job.